All right. So if you'll just if excuse me, has everyone gotten the latest revision of the months folder? Yep. Anthony has. So if everyone else just want to right click and then get latest revision.
It's going crazy slow for
Is
me.
it?
Yeah.
And it's just a bunch of folders too. So.
It's saying it's getting 80,000 files for my compiled section. So I'm wondering if somebody's stuck a bunch.
Compiled? I mean,
35,769 files.
someone's turned it in. Some people have turned it in.
Yeah, but this is the file. Yeah, this is section. Just compiled.
Yeah, remember make sure you're on the Depot tab with your workspace selected.
Depot tab with your folder stuff. Not workspace.
Oh yeah, your workspace should be selected in this.
You just do it right here.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not like a, yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Did you want us to get the latest revision on the whole final project file?
For right now, just go ahead and just mouse that. Just open it up and just get it for the month.
The 1602?
Yeah. This should just be just a bunch of folders.
Is that alright then?
Yeah, try to, because we stopped it, go ahead and do a get revision and force it.
On 1602?
Yeah. Just hit the force operation. Check.
If you get all of 1602, Andrew, it's going to be huge.
That's good.
I took all of 1602. It wasn't that big for me.
When?
Yeah, it should just be, it was just 12 files. That was quick.
Really?
Yeah.
All of 1602 is 80,000 plus.
You're on the resource server, aren't you?
Oh, are they on the other one?
Yeah, we're on the Perforce. We
Okay.
only, because you're probably getting all 6 sections, and we're just getting section 0.
Okay.
So now that you have that, everyone got to that step? Frank, how you doing?
Yeah, I just had to restart.
You got it. No worries.
So,
Open that up.
No problems with it. It's really happy.
Alright, so then right click on that months folder, and then just go ahead and show in Explorer. And what you want to do is just in here is create a new folder and name it. Your name is fine. And make sure you're putting it inside the working folder. So right click on here, show in Explorer.
you said working, right? That's weird.
Yeah, inside the working folder.
Alright, so go to show in Explorer.
Document. And then that's where you're going to hold it.
Alright. Now inside your folder we can just go ahead and add a contact info text document.
What's the naming convention for the document?
Just do last name, first name, and then contact info. The naming convention for pretty much everything in the class is last name, first name, and then what the assignment is.
Yeah, I right clicked and then I hit new text document.
Alright, and now we can just go ahead and just type in if you want to just put your email in here or any other, if you have a Skype or any other, Google Hangout email, whatever you want to have your ways of contact be for you.
Then all we want to do is save it. Now we can come back over to Perforce. Everyone got that set up and created? Got your text document in your folder? Kyle says yes. Frank, you're good?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
So it's in there.
Alright. Alright, now if you go back to your workspace tab, so now we have the depot tab on the left and the workspace over here on the right. You should now see that folder that you just created. And then with the file inside it. So you can right click on that folder, mark it for add. Now that it's marked for add in your change list, right click on it and submit. Yep, and you have to write in something, so just go ahead and adding contact info and then submit.
Up here. Right click. Submit.
Change this description. And that's what you want to change.
Is it like it's not letting me type anything in?
No, I'll just wait here.
Alright, I see Damien's.
Yeah, and then this will be
Wait, you just hit submit?
right.
Yeah. Alright, so I submitted it.
So you do. And it's there.
Alright, I see Frank's. Looks good.
Still has a process.
And Kyle. Awesome. So now we've got everyone in there. This is the folder you're going to be working out of. You just went through the process of how to add a new file to the server. So what you want to do from here is grab the project template. This was a pretty big download because we have a character in there for you. That may take a while. Has anyone downloaded the content already? Did you do it on campus or were
I
you?
did my place.
Yeah. Okay.
I downloaded scrap assets and content
Awesome.
in my house.
Cool. Good stuff. If anyone hasn't done that already, definitely do so. The next thing you want to do is add your project template to that folder we just created. Obviously we want to rename it to our name _ project. That's part of the playground assignment. But I just want to make sure everyone had that in place. So now you have your space inside of Perforce to work on all of your assignments throughout the month. Alright, so just wanted to go over this exercise real quick just to get some creative juices flowing and talk about some different progression methods. Marker anywhere? Probably shouldn't use a Crayola marker. No. Liz saves the day.
I haven't seen her in like 2 months.
Yeah.
As long as you don't push right into the folder that closes that window.
Alrighty, so this is just a Google drawing that depicts a few different methods of game progression. So let's just start at the top here. So linear and string of pearls. Pretty straightforward. Single starting point, fixed gameplay, all the way to a fixed ending. The difference between a string of pearls and linear is in between here you have these non-linear points where the player can do things in different orders. It doesn't necessarily matter, but they're going to end up with completing some objective or some task and getting to a choke point. Whether this is a level between a game or this is a physical space. So this could be one entire level, or this whole chart right here could be a level where you progress from one spot to the next. So does anybody have any examples that they could think of for just a completely 100% linear game, where it's linear gameplay?
Like the Call of Duty.
I was gonna say
Single
Journey.
player maybe?
I was gonna say Tetris.
Tetris? No?
No.
That's right, that's
Could try that.
Call of Duty fits real well into String of Pearls, right? Because that still has that element of non-linearity to it, where there's still chances for you to do certain things inside of that world, you know, finding collectibles, finding other objects, but you're still getting to those choke point rooms where you gotta get into this spot, kill these guys, move to the next spot, but how you take them out, how you do so is sometimes a little bit different.
Also, don't limit yourself to just thinking about video games.
Exactly.
Think about everything.
Candyland.
It's actually not.
No.
I would argue it's not even a game. It's because it's a machine. You could take each other's turns and the outcome's the same. Games involve choice, and there's no choice in Candyland.
Either two things.
So it's more of a process than it is a game. But also you can go backwards and forwards in Candyland, so it's not purely linear. What's something that is purely linear? I'll give you one. Foot race.
Yep.
A foot race.
Yeah, or a drag race. Start at the beginning, you go to the end. That's it. Whoever does that fastest wins.
Yeah, like running a marathon.
So any of your racing games then?
Not necessarily, because I mean a race itself is, but with some of the racing games now, it depends on which car you choose, how you choose to drive. There's a lot more factors in it, and there's no necessarily fixed endpoint.
I got nothing.
So there's one. It's for String of Pearls. There's one that everyone is familiar with that we should be able to get down to.
For String of Pearls or for linear?
For String of Pearls. We just talked about it on Monday. Scraps.
Scraps.
Yep, exactly. So as I was saying, how each area that you guys are creating may not exactly be linear, but when you're transitioning between each area between you guys, there's going to be those choke points, those transitions where they're going to be getting from this area to the next. Whatever they do in your own area is totally up to you, but not necessarily has to be a linear path as depicted up top. What about games like God of War? Right, very straightforward, linear progression. All right, let me go ahead and pull back the veil. I got some examples over here. All right, there we go. There's a few examples of some other String of Pearl and linear type games. So yeah, any endless runner, any distance game is just linear going forward. BioShock, really great example of a String of Pearls game. Yeah, and also see we have some sports down here. So definitely don't just when we're thinking about types of progression, don't just think of video games. Think of any type of interactive experience or any type of game, whether it be analog or a physical sport. So now let's go on to branching and reductive. So a little bit more complicated, right? A lot more going on in these, but we're just looking at the image, you can see the flow and the pattern of it. So anyone have any ideas of what type of gameplay would be branching or reductive?
Type of game. Heavy rain for branching.
Definitely.
Percent?
Heavy rain.
Oh, yeah. It's fun.
give you another one for branching that is outside the box you may not think about. It's choose your own adventure books. You remember those as a kid?
Mhm.
You always start on page 1, but you can end up in a whole array of different places.
What does reductive say? Is that personality reduction?
Possibility
Possibility.
to a possibility reduction to a possibility reduction to a fixed ending.
Trying to think.
So just looking at this, that may represent something that would be going on in a sporting event, right? So, March Madness tournament bracket, or you see the Super Bowl being laid out like this. So this could very well be used in a sports tournament, right?
Another one you may not think of is a Rubik's Cube. Starts out with the colors and then nearly infinite variety mixed up all over it. But by the end, you're closing in, get all red, get all white, and
Yep.
you end up with the same. Everybody ends up the same.
Exactly. So branching definitely goes into the games where you have a lot of choice. The player makes a lot of decisions, and those choices are impacting the gameplay. Mass Effect, the Mass Effect series, as well as Dragon Age, those games, the choices you make in those games will affect the rest of the series. The choices in Mass Effect 1 affect Mass Effect 2 and even the 3, so they really even tie them into completing the entire game. So that gives you a lot of different gameplay, a lot of different possibilities, and this type of stuff takes, at least for branching, and as we get further down into football shape and sandbox, these types of gameplay take a lot of time and effort and manpower to design and implement. So don't think that this type of stuff isn't possible, but for now, while we're working on scraps, really trying to focus on that linear and non-linear gameplay in terms of those choke points and using player direction and the design that we have to guide the player in what we want to do. Because definitely with branching as well as with like sandbox games, there's a lot of time that players aren't going to see all of the content that you're making, right? But as students and as people that we're trying to show off our work to potential employers, we want something that everything you're doing, they're going to see, right? You don't want to hide your best work. You don't want to have all of these awesome interactions with the player can avoid them and skip them. We want to force the player to go through that to show off everything that we know.
Branching is a really good example of that. Every single one of those endings you make and every single one of those possibilities you have to implement. And that can be hours or dozens or hundreds of hours of work. But you see the player only sees
One path.
Yeah, like in this example, half. And this is a very, very simple example. And a real example, they'd see 5% of the actual game. I mean, just think about how much of GTA you actually see played through. Very little.
Definitely. There's definitely those players that will go through and they're completionists and want to see everything, want to do everything, but that also takes time, and that's not your target audience. So you got to keep in reference of who it is that we're targeting and what we're trying to accomplish. So right now, you're targeting your potential employers. Those are what you guys want to be designing for to get those jobs and get out in the industry. Make the games that aren't going to be necessarily your number one choice. You may be working on games that aren't necessarily what you want to be working on, but you're going to get your foot in that door, and then that's going to lead you to better opportunities. So anyone else want to contribute about branching or reductive gameplay? Anything else come to mind?
Branching, I wanted to say like the Telltale games.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Good company, by the way. Good guess.
Alright, choose your own adventure book, Star Fox, the Telltale games, got Jigsaw Puzzle. Love me some Jigsaw Puzzle. Is it a game? Is it a toy? You'll never know. Alright, so on to football shaped and sandbox. These are very, very similar, but not necessarily the same. So, anyone want to take a stab at a sandbox type game or football shaped game?
Sandbox Minecraft.
Yep.
So the attributes of a football-shaped game is that you have a fixed start and you have a fixed ending. Sometimes that's team A wins, team B wins. but what happens in between is kind of nebulous. And
So like a sport.
some sports, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sports can either be this, or they can be pearl shaped. For example, start of each quarter in football.
Yeah.
Always the same, but what happens in each quarter?
We still get to
completely
those
variable.
same choke points.
So like Rocket League. You guys know that?
Yeah, the PlayStation 4
Yeah.
car
Yep.
soccer,
Yeah.
I like to call it.
That
Yeah,
one,
yeah, definitely. That's
You start, whatever happens in
Things
between,
happen,
and then
Mhm.
and then it
it's
ends. Yeah. There's another game that was mentioned a lot in class last time.
League of Legends?
Yeah, where do you think
Yeah.
that fits?
Non-linear, right?
Football.
no.
There's an end, right?
Legends is
No.
football shape.
Football.
Yeah,
No,
that's what I meant, that's what I meant. I was
It's a
looking.
sandbox.
League of Legends?
League of Legends
That's
is
an
totally
indie.
sandbox.
Yeah,
What's
it's
the
League of
ending in
Legends.
League of Legends?
There's a winner or loser.
Did I say
Every
linear?
time you play.
You said non-linear.
Okay, but I
You
mean
wanted,
like
the title.
football.
that's
Oh.
almost MMO type.
Yeah, I was looking at football shape, I'm
No,
like.
League of Legends,
linear.
it's a MOBA.
Yeah, but it has like almost has an MMO gameplay. I mean, how long have we been playing League of Legends for?
No, you
Like,
play
Uh,
multiple games. Each game of League of
Okay,
Legends
each game is
discrete
self-contained.
winner or loser.
Yeah.
Just
So
like in
these-
football, as a league, it's infinite, but each game is discrete.
Gotcha.
League of Legends is a sport.
Thank you.
A lot of validation right there.
Well,
They got
it's a video game sport.
Sportcasters with ridiculous headphones on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so sandbox would be MMOs, right? So World of Warcraft, and in my mind, there is some type of sandbox, endless game to the MOBA market. That's why it's so successful. It's because you can play that game continuously, and it does definitely fit in football shape. But the overall gameplay and the overall reason you're coming back to it is because it does have an endless sense to it.
As a campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at any sport as a campaign, like the NFL
Yeah.
is an endless campaign.
Exactly.
But each individual game within it is different.
So yeah, like so football shaped Crackdown. Have you played Crackdown before? I like to never played it. I like to reference that a lot. In this class, pertaining to the collectibles, I think they were very well done in that game, as well as in Spider-Man 3.
Thanks.
There were some awesome collectibles there. They were much more hidden, but in Crackdown they did a lot of different techniques guiding the player and hinting where certain items were. But it's also just a big open world game, right? There's so much to do, and you can really jump forward and be able to get to places you're not even supposed to. So they really just didn't limit the player at all, but you still got to that fixed ending when you completed your final objective.
Let's give some more examples and categorize them. Just shout out a game. Now that you've seen all of these. Any game. Let's go with Pac-Man.
Pac-Man was Pearl.
String of Pearls.
String of Pearls. Very good.
I exposed some of your exposed some of your examples.
Okay. Let's come up with some games you guys are playing.
Games that I'm playing.
Other than League of Legends.
We already got that one.
Witcher 3 would fit into branching. I don't think the game. Does that look weird?
I was thinking that could. I don't know. I haven't.
But there's not multiple stop points. I mean, just.
Yeah, it's definitely got a quick start point. I feel like it's got a quick start point too.
Does it
I
have
don't think
choke
I don't
points?
think there's multiple in there. I think it's String of Pearl.
Could be
There's-
String of Pearls.
Because you get to like
Yeah,
grab that's your
Within
choke
it,
point.
it
Yeah.
has the like choosing between one, but I think that's like the only significant choice you make in the game. I mean, what other significant choices?
What?
And I say that because not because it's women, but because by choosing one or the other, you're limiting your options with that one. Do you see what I'm getting at?
I see what you're getting at, but
I'm picking up what I'm putting down.
you put it back down.
But does the Witcher game itself, Anthony's the only one I think who's beat that, have multiple endings, or did you just beat it once and then okay?
I believe it was, but I'm pretty sure it's only one ending.
Okay. So where would you put that?
I think it's String of Pearls.
Has specific choke points that everybody's gonna see? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Alright, what's another game?
Fallout 4 would fit into football shape.
Yep.
Very much. All Bethesda games, really.
Yep. Kyle, what are you playing right now?
What was it? King's Quest.
Alright, so what category would you think King's Quest would fit into?
I haven't beaten it, but I'd probably say branching. I don't know if it has multiple endings.
Does it have choke points through it? Where you're seeing the same thing as everybody else? Incrementally?
Kind of not. It's kind of like a Telltale game.
Okay.
So more of a
It's very
branch-
similar to
branch.
that.
Cool.
Or has different dialogue options.
What about Mario? Classic Mario.
I'm thinking String of Pearls.
There can be an argument made, like,
Yep.
these are pretty clear cut, but there's
Yeah.
definitely overlap and gray area.
Yeah.
For example, like, Skyrim is basically a football shaped game, but there's like 4 endings. You know, whether you choose the dragon or go against them, you choose the empire or the rebels, and each one of those is a slightly different ending. So there's a little bit of branching, but mostly it's just a football shape. So, you know, we categorize this just for organization, and so you can see like the different difficulties of how you make these games,
Yeah.
but there's overlap.
Yeah, these definitely aren't the only ones, and as we were talking, we could tell, well, this game has this element to this type, but it also is this, and we're talking about this, there's a discussion, maybe not everyone's agreeing on it, but these are some that are set that have been executed before that we could start to look at and take parts of and put them together and form new types and innovate from this. So definitely not the only ones, definitely not set in stone, but very common types of progression throughout games.
What's another game? Let's do 1 or 2 more.
Borderlands.
Okay, where does it
Say
sit?
that would be
Borderlands.
String of Pearls.
Okay.
Does anyone just show up more often than others?
I think you guys are you
String
hearing a
of
pattern?
Pearls.
I'm hearing String of Pearls the most.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's what I was kind of thinking.
Totally.
Why do you think that would be?
Yeah, I just,
Development style.
Absolutely, it's
Yeah.
cheap.
I mean, yeah, it's just,
yeah.
you're right, like look at companies like Ubisoft, and making Assassin's Creed, right? Huge teams, lots of people, lots of money, lots of resources, but I mean, look at the indie market. Those games that they're playing and developing are much smaller, much more feasible for smaller teams. So it's the same thing here. You guys are four people. We've got look at time as our resource. So we've got 3 months to. This is the design phase of building your level in scraps. Then you get to build the mechanics and integrate them, and then polish and balance and integrate everything together. So just think about that. That is your time frame. So don't think of trying to make a sandbox or a football shaped game in 3 months, right? It's just not feasible with the amount of time and people and resources we have. So think about that linear and string of pearls gameplay, and look at the games that do it well and do it successfully, and take from that and turn that into something that you want to do and what you're envisioning and what Scraps is going to be.
You can also, as you play games and buy games and see games advertised, think about how they're categorized and what are the decisions the design team made. Why did they make it that way? For like the reductive one, that's almost always a puzzle game.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of, you're trying to solve something, generally no replay value, but not much work to do. You just have a bunch of random possibilities. Like Bejeweled is a good example. You come to a conclusion and then it's over. But others, like branching, are really inefficient and expensive. Football shaped and sandbox are generally really inefficient and expensive from the creator's standpoint, but also give some really amazing gameplay too. So there's a balance and there's a trade-off. And as you see these games, you can think about, as I'm designing my games, what's the structure I want, what's the structure I can afford, and what's the structure I want the player to see.
So where do you think Peggle would fit?
Peggle, you have different levels and you progress through them, right?
Yeah, string of
So
pearls.
it's String of Pearls. Yeah. And it's Cut the Rope, Angry Birds, all of those.
Okay.
String of Pearls. It is a very, very common, I would say overwhelmingly the most common.
And that's definitely the one that I've seen the most out of Final Project games as well. So looking down the line, sequential levels that you progress from one to the next seems to be the most successful and the best
The best product that comes out in the end, I haven't really think I've had many, I haven't really seen many branching games or, we had one or two, like 1-800 detective like type games where you could solve some crimes, but, mostly everything will fit into the string of pearls category. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. Alright, so, I just want to get a sense of, you guys have all had Maya, prior Maya experience, you have some knowledge with creating 3D models, right?
Mhm.
So if I said the word UVs, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Frank does? It's okay if you
Like
don't
UV
know it.
mapping.
Huh?
Like UV mapping.
Yeah, do you know what
Yeah.
UVs are?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So for anyone that doesn't, the best way to think about it, what really let it click for me when I was starting to learn it and understand everything was when you unwrap a Christmas present, right? You rip off all the paper and you get to see what's inside and you get to see what's underneath. But if you were to carefully unfold that paper and lay it out completely flat, that's pretty much what UVs are. It's just a 2D depiction of the skin of an object. Same way when you may hear artists in the industry refer to skinning a character. That's literally if you were to take someone's skin and lay it out flat, that's what you're doing with UVs. And just the reason I wanted to talk about this is it'll give you a little bit of a leg up in one, being able to communicate with artists and understand it, as well as detect things that are wrong with some of your models inside of Unity when you're in the game engine, and also be able to make an adjustment to something. Maybe you find something online, or you create a very simple model yourself and you just want to put a texture on it for some purpose. You're going to have to be able to understand how to do that. And I just want to give you a little bit of exposure to that so you guys have that knowledge. That sound good to you guys? Are everyone comfortable with that?
Does it matter which Maya version? I still have 2014 on this.
No, that's fine. Doesn't matter.
Like not when it would cause issues uploading to Unity or anything like that?
Nope. Nope. Because Maya's really great. Maya's very well implemented. Autodesk is implemented with Unity that you can physically load a Maya scene into Unity. So it's really great integration, as well as you can save assets and the scenes right to your project in Unity, and you go back there and it just shows up right in your project.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead and create a simple object here. So just have a cube. And now I'm going to go over to inside of the window UV editor. So up at the top, you have the Windows menu. Here's the UV editor. So you can think of the coordinates u and v just like you think of coordinates x and y. Exact same thing, just it's just referring to u to just in terms of space of u and v. And everything you want to fit inside of this 0 to 1 space. So you probably have heard before of tiling textures, right? So you can find a brick texture or a wood texture. Something, I know CG Textures or Textures.com is the new name of it, has all types of resources for you to, with the level blocking meshes, to just take a texture, apply it to it, and it'll just tile across this object forever. But the power of UVs is it allows you to make something that's going to fit inside of that, that's going to be custom, right? So if you look around, there's some objects that it's not just a tiling texture. There's a lot more information and detail. Organic objects, humans and like plant matter, things like that. A lot of it doesn't just tile like that. So being able to understand this will definitely help you with any type of 3D modeling or blocking out of levels that you do. So inside of here, you'll notice that when I have my cube selected, it is already showing me what my UVs look like, right? It's showing me this wireframe of the faces, and that's all UVs are a representative of the face of an object. So I'm just going to go to so I just went to Google and typed in texture map, and up here you'll see something like this. So any pattern like this is really good to use because you can show you exactly what face is what, as well as your texture resolution to make sure things aren't squashed or stretched. So I'm just going to grab one of these. Save as UV mapper. Go ahead and put a new material on this guy. Alright, so now you'll see that I've gotten the texture on there, so now I can clearly tell if I grab these UVs, so I'm just going to right click and go to UV mode. Just like in how you're over here, you can go to object mode, edge, face, vert, same way. In here you go to UV mode, and I'm just going to grab all of them. Now if I move these around, you're going to notice that they're going to start moving on the object. That's because I'm moving it in actual U and V space, right? So I can also scale these, so if I want to make them smaller or larger, this is going to give you less pixels, right? Because this image that is reading, this is a 512 by 512 image, so if I make these really small, it's seeing it's going to be not not as detailed and not as much resolution. So when you're building an asset that fits in this 0 to 1 space, you always want it to be as optimized as possible because you don't want to have any empty space. So some of the controls that you would want to utilize in here would be to cut and sew some edges. So this is one of these icons up here.
That's the polygon stuff with
Yeah, I was saying this this alpha channel here. Oh, there we go. So this RBG will turn off the texture.
I forgot, how do you import the texture in here? How did you import it? Like do it on the cube.
Okay, so you create a new material.
Okay, that's what I was
So you right click, assign new material. Yep, and then right here, you click on the Lambert 2, then click on this arrow and assign the texture you found.
New file.
Yep. So if you go into edge mode while you're in the UVs and you select an edge you'd like, you can hold shift and right click, and now you have an option to cut UVs. So you can cut this off. Now if you go to UV mode, so another quick shortcut, if you guys aren't familiar with the control, and when you right click you'll have one menu. If you hit control and right click you'll get a different one. So you can select two UVs, hit control and right click, and go to the shell. Now I can move around this actual shell. I'll just pull it over here. And now you want to find where this is on your model. So it looks like it's down here because you'll see them selected. And as I move this around, you'll see this this texture start to move. So this is just a introduction to this. I'm not going to get too in depth how to optimize a model or go too far with this, but I just want you to understand how these faces are how how the faces in the UV editor are corresponding to the actual faces of the geometry. So when you're working on a model, what's going to happen is you're going to have some seams. So now you're going to notice that I look at this and it doesn't line up and it's not proper. It's not fitting how I want it to. And so when you're working on something, you got to think about where it's okay for those seams to be and where it isn't. Same thing with the level blocking meshes. So when you're making two walls and you have them next to each other, if it's transitioning, it's a different material, you don't want to have that seam just be in between, right? You want to maybe hide it with another piece of geometry. So you have two walls, but then you can have a column in between, so it's hiding those seams. Same thing with working with UVs. Think about where your seams are, right? So if a character artist was working on a human, you don't want to have a seam going right down the middle of your face because it's going to be really apparent. Maybe the character's in a cut scene. You can't actually take him seriously because the immersion has been broken. So you'd want to have your character seam be like along your ears or down the side of your body, somewhere where it can be hidden. Have your arm be the seam for your arm be on the inside rather than be on your elbow. So you have your seams be somewhere hidden. And on hard objects or hard surface rigid objects, you always want it to be along an edge, maybe on the back side where it's not seen or hidden. So just a few simple tools that you can utilize would be to just cut edges and move things around, and then to sew them. You'll notice if I hover over an edge right here, I click on it, it's going to select both of them because it's representing where the other half of this is, as well as selecting it over here. And then so in the polygons menu, you can move and sew edges, or you can hold shift and right click, move and sew UVs. And it'll move it in place, and now that seam is gone. So it's always this fine balance of where are my seams, how can I utilize this UV space, as well as how can I get the best resolution for the parts that matter, right? So if you were going to model, say, this desk, right, one of these desks here, you don't really care about the faces that are underneath on the backside because the player is never going to see that. All you care about the most is the top, and then like the sides, and then the paneling on the front. The things that the player is going to see. The other side, don't get so hung up on modeling all the parts, everything that's going on. Just model the important stuff and have that be the larger half. So maybe that takes up a bigger portion of your UV space, and the extra stuff you don't really worry about. Another thing that may get you started, if you say I just created a cube, right, and it had UVs that came in with it, but say you make this and then you extrude on it, you do something. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to extrude this. Go too many. Now you'll notice as I do this, my UVs are starting to distort and get wonky. So now I just made this short little cut like this, right? in my mesh. Let me just go to the shaded mode so you can see it. Right? But now my UVs aren't showing up properly. One way to, so maybe this UVing is the last thing you would want to do when you're working on a model. You want to get your model finalized before you think about this stuff. You would go to inside your, it's the UV tab. So we've got to create a set. There we go. Create.
Misty. Her maiden name is Sue.
Move it.
It's fun. Oh, she messaged back. She's like, tell Frank I said, what up?
Just like that.
Yes, she did.
Oh, okay. Spell W-W-E.
No, she
Still
spelled
there.
W-H-A-A-A-A-A-A-A-T. V-V-V-V-V-T. I'm trying to sign E.
It should be here.
I spent $25 to call out separate logo.
What? Wait, real dollars?
Yeah, it's like $25 call out photo
Wow.
to get mine to morph.
So who wants the call?
Press that
You.
in.
Oh, but I don't. I don't miss that piece of code.